Where does sin reside? For the preacher, it's in the hearts of man, consumed by a wickedness that leads us astray. For the musician, it's in the vibrations that compel the body to betray the mind, caught in the psychedelic trance of dance. For the artist, it lies in a brushstroke, one capable of containing both our virtues and faults, expressing personal and generational truths through a medium more capable than perhaps any other. For the black inhabitants of the 1930s Jim Crow South, looking for relief after a hard day's work of agonizing labor, it's here, in a space where all the previous sins coalesce and intermingle, a space where no judgment shall arise. You hear the loud thumping music from outside, light and shadows dancing across the entrance. You open the door and bask in the immensity of the world you've entered, the threshold you've crossed. This is The Sugar Shack, the most iconic work of Black American art ever made. It visually describes such a night one might expect to experience in a juke joint in 1930s Southern America, whose descriptive emotional dance sequence is rendered sensationally. It's swarming with black bodies, frozen in place, twisted into striking poses. The figures are depicted with elongated, exaggerated proportions, their limbs creating sharp, contorted angles and leading lines. The patrons have given themselves up completely to the musical commotion, like sacrificial lambs to the slaughter, an arm held tightly to a waist, a leg leaned forcibly towards another, expressions caught in mid-hoot or post-holler. In the room, a police officer who might have some authority in another canvas finds themselves completely neutered here, not even attempting to wrangle in this unruly cast of characters, a fruitless endeavor to begin with. It was painted by Ernie Barnes in 1976, influenced by his days as a young child, sneaking into black dance bars as a kid, witnessing what he described as the sinful display of dance. It's in these juke joints, late night clubs, and spots like it that the taboos of Black American nightlife were given ample space to operate, under the light of hips held and skins shown. It's a painting that, through its rigorous command over our senses, showcases the joyous celebration of African American dance at a time and in a space where it could be celebrated rather than condemned. Born in segregated Durham, North Carolina, Barnes was encouraged by his mother to pursue arts and music at an early age, seeking refuge in drawing pads and sketchbooks. He'd end up initially pursuing football, though, through his adolescent years, playing college ball before being drafted to the NFL in 1960. After retiring 5 years later, he'd moved to LA, where he'd continue to explore what would eventually become his house style, neo-mannerism, emphasized by exaggerated forms and fluid compositions, and as his background would suggest, he often painted sports compositions, a practice similarly obsessed with form and the body as dance was, as he focused on capturing the detail of forces that compel the body to change shape and transform in order to accomplish larger physical goals. His figures often are shown with closed eyes, blind to one another's humanity, as Barnes put it. In The Sugar Shack, the bodies are equally as compelled, entranced in a way that, despite visually taking characteristics of the 1930s Barnes was born in, retains qualities that remove the moment from time and place, like the inhabitants could be listening to anything, from the swinging big band jazz of a bygone era to the funky grooves of the 70s it was actually made in, a decade where burgeoning black talents became exposed to wider American audiences. We see this so evident in two other pillars of the 1970s Black American canon, who saw Sugar Shack and the work of Ernie Barnes as both profound and integral to telling their own stories. These works being Marvin Gaye's 1976 album I Want You and the 1970s sitcom Good Times. Both would adapt Sugar Shack as central visual imagery, Gaye using it as his album cover, and The Good Times not only utilizing it in later seasons as the show's end credit visual, but also tapping Barnes to be the show's painter, with many of his works featured throughout the show's run. It's through seeing these works in concert with one another that we begin to better understand the critical cultural movement of the decade that made Barnes' work stand the test of time, as central to visualizing the Black American relationship to art, painting, music, and media. In I Want You, we see Gaye at his wit's end, so to speak, Coming off the back of the seminal generational defining albums in What's Going On and Let's Get It On, he struggled to come up with new material for his next project. It's around this time he'd meet producer and musician Leon Ware, and they'd hit it off, finding a sonic profile in the more sensual, jazzy stuff of Leon's catalog. The following record would go on to essentially be a penned work centered on his on-again, off-again love affair with the underage Janice Hunter, with lyrics paired over smooth, grooving dance tracks that would see Gaye as more erotic and plainly sensual than previous LPs, with lyrical content focused on attraction and reciprocal love. On the title track, he sings,
"It's just a fantasy, oh sugar, to share is precious, pure and fair. Ooh, don't play with something you should cherish for life, oh baby. Don't you wanna care? Ain't it lonely out there? I want you.
What Gaye finds here isn't something rehashing the cultural consciousness of what's going on, but something about emotional inhibitions, a love affair that takes you captive in a way that can only be remedied through music that comes from the soul. It's here we understand what he saw so joyously in the canvas of the Sugar Shack he adopted for the cover. We see that emotional reverence, that groove that comforts all manner of spectators who, if they aren't listening to Marvin, could be listening to Ray Charles or the Five Keys, or one of his many other black influences and inspirations. It's a call to dance that transcends generations. In Good Times, we see them capture the black zeitgeist just as transformationally as the first sitcom with a majority black cast. It depicts a nuclear black family living in a Chicago housing project in the 70s, with episodes centering their poverty, various family dynamics, and social issues through multifaceted portrayals of blackness, especially seen in the children. Their eldest son, JJ, is a talented rising artist, and many of the episode exploits intersect with him one way or another, attempting to sell his art as a means to make financial gains and lift them out of their poverty. It's worth noting that all of the paintings depicted in this show, including the works made by JJ, are the work of Ernie Barnes. His stylistic stick figures with larger-than-life limbs are even mocked by the members of JJ's family, and the actual Sugar Shack painting served as the end credits image in seasons 4 and 5. It's here we witness art as it intersects with capital directly. In the episode Black Jesus, he stews the ire of his mother when he paints a blasphemous depiction of Jesus as a black man, based off one of their homeless neighbors, a painting whose presence in the house begins to give members in the family good luck, replacing the status of the white Jesus that his mother had always known and prayed to. In another episode, JJ is disowned by his father for taking the art patronage of a man he had beef with in the past. JJ ends up living with said men for a time under his patronage, before the situation eventually resolves itself by the end of the 25-minute sitcom structure. In JJ, we see an almost adolescent version of Ernie. Even under his comedic relief and levity that brings the family so often out of their situation of direness for a moment, his penchant and practice of the arts, his motivation here comes from him doing the one thing he's been called to do. And he doesn't let the taboo or indecency that others are blinded by stop him from accessing his most creative self. And in looking for patronage, for people to buy into his work, he doesn't curtail and change his messages to be more palatable. He keeps them as raw and real as they've always been, and he does the work he must do. In the midst of dire times and get-rich-quick schemes, he still finds time and worth through painting that for even a moment lifts him and his family out of the grueling slog of the projects, a comfort that the patrons of the Sugar Shack, escaping the hardships of everyday life in the Jim Crow South, enjoy in equal measure. I think that's why so much black art can't help but reference it. In Gaye and Good Times, we see works that in our modern era serve as time capsules to a decade of roaring new black media being brought to the surface, to music and art and TV that was central to the Black American experience, reaching new eyes, becoming in real time ingrained into the culture of American media period, to see the struggles and joy and pain that makes all great art begin to be explored in black works just as richly as it had been in other mainstream media. To gaze upon the sins in Sugar Shack is to gain insight into a kind of unapologetica, a wildness and freeness that other black artists, both burgeoning and boundary pushing, yearned for. A depiction that encodes the hopes of their own works to transform and transfix through a visual identity that refused to be beautified for mass audiences. And so, the so-called sin that runs rampant here really isn't sin at all. It's a love letter to form and movement. It's a stage play to song and dance. A time capsule removed from the shame and heartbreak that defined its depicted era. It's a hieroglyphic, a language we've decoded whose meaning we've in turn passed on to generations that follow us in the hopes they'll understand what mattered most to us, who we were, how we lived, and the work that defined us. It is the Sugar Shack, inhabited with patrons from everywhere and every when, all finding something in the groove that compels them to dance. Mind Theater is a solo effort produced and written by me, Eoaking Bade. For only $3 a month, you can support the show on Patreon. It really helps a lot. The link is in the description box below. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.